Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Is humanity on the verge of another world war? Today we're going to talk about rumors of war and whether or not any of the current hotspots will lead to a major conflict. Most important, we're going to talk about why rumors of war is a sign of the second coming of Jesus Christ. So let's get to it. Why do I say that rumors of war is a sign of the second coming? Well, let's turn to the Bible and see what it says. If we look at Matthew 24, we can read verse 6. And the context of this is the disciples coming to Jesus and saying, "What are the signs of your coming, of the establishment of your kingdom?" So this is the context of the second coming of Jesus. He's coming back to earth to rule over the earth. And part of the response Jesus gives is found here in Matthew 24, verse 6. He says, "And you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately." So all of this is in the run-up to Jesus and his return. So this is sometimes translated as rumors of war. So the question is, do we see that today? So we would expect to see that if we're near the return of Jesus, we would expect to see that. So what do we see in the world today? Well, we turn to this Washington Post article from yesterday. It says, "White House scrambles to avoid crisis amid Pelosi visit to Taiwan." Now, you've all, I'm sure, been watching the news about the Speaker of the House in the United States, Nancy Pelosi, has traveled to Taiwan. This has caused a big international dispute between the United States and China diplomatically. China considers Taiwan part of mainland China, so that's the Chinese Communist Party controls mainland China. Taiwan considers itself an independent, democratically elected republic. They don't consider themselves part of China at all. And the United States and a bunch of other nations have been sort of straddling the fence on this, not wanting to upset one side or the other for a long time. Nancy Pelosi really is putting an end to that now and coming out. It's really a diplomatic coup. And so China is threatening to invade Taiwan. They're threatening severe repercussions for this. So this is definitely qualifies as a rumor of war. If we were drawn into this war, it would have catastrophic consequences for the world. Primarily, not just because the United States and China are nuclear powers. That's one reason. But Taiwan is responsible for the manufacture of more than 50% of the world's semiconductor computer chips that are used in a wide variety of products all across the world on an everyday basis. So if you see what's happened recently with the automobile manufacturing industry and their inability to get chips and how it's held up production, imagine that being magnified many times over if this were to happen, because either you would see China move in and take over Taiwan and take control of that and use it to hold the United States and its allies hostage to that supply chain, or you could see Taiwan and its allies destroy that manufacturing capacity in order to keep China from taking it. Either way, the world would be short of those vital chips that they need for just about the manufacture of everything. So this could be a very significant conflict. Next, we turn to this article from International Business Times. It says, "West could trigger nuclear war over Ukraine, Russia says at UN." The conflict in Ukraine does not warrant Russia's use of nuclear weapons, but Moscow could decide to use its nuclear arsenal in response to, quote, "direct aggression by NATO countries over the invasion," Russia said on Tuesday at the United Nations. So what constitutes direct aggression? I think Russia is intentionally leaving that vague language there so that they can give themselves the ability and the flexibility to use nuclear weapons if they if they think that it's time to do so. So we shouldn't take this threat as an idle threat. Many people made that mistake when Russia threatened to invade Ukraine, and they said they're not really going to do it. They did it. Russia, that whole time, has been threatening to use nuclear weapons if it's backed into a corner by the United States, NATO, or its allies. There's all sorts of places where this could go wrong. The United States and NATO are supplying weapons and logistics, intelligence to the Ukrainians against Russia. And could that be interpreted in a way that leads to a nuclear release? Could there be some sort of issue where the war in Ukraine spills over into a neighboring NATO nation, and that drags the United States and NATO into war with Russia and creates a massive war? We don't know. Again, this is another rumor of war. Are there other rumors? Here's one right here from U.S. to enrage Kim Jong-un with assassination dry run. And this one says the U.S. and South Korea are about to play war games again, and this time they're going for the jugular. For their first joint military exercises in 5 years, the Americans and South Koreans will polish up what military people here call the kill chain, in which they target the North's missile and nuclear sites, plus bases needed to supply, refuel, and rearm them. Sources familiar with the U.S.-South Korea military alliance say the games will climax in a decapitation exercise where they play at invading the heart of the North Korean command structure and taking out the leader, Kim Jong-un. So, again, this is a provocative act that we don't know how North Korea is going to react to that. I'm not sure how wise this is on the part of the United States when they've been in active provocation with Russia and now with China. Do we want the United States involved in a three-front war? Who knows? But this is, again, more rumors of war. And it goes on. So if we turn to this from Al Jazeera, it says analysis: increased Israel-Iran confrontations risk war. The tension between Iran and Israel continues to grow, and with the nuclear deal between Tehran and the West looking increasingly unlikely to be restored, further escalation might be a possibility. And if we scroll down here and continue reading, run to what I believe is a key piece here. It says, we are in many ways in a worse situation than in 2015. So they're talking in this context about this joint comprehensive plan of action, also known as the Iranian nuclear deal. And it says, that is because the element of the nuclear deal that allows for international oversight over Iran's nuclear-related imports will end in 2025, meaning that even if the two sides agree to restore the deal now, tensions are likely to ramp up again as 2025 approaches. So we've got Russia-Ukraine and the larger implications of that. We've got China and Taiwan. We've got North Korea, South Korea. We've got Israel, Iran. We also have Turkey and Greece. We have Pakistan and India. There are all sorts of conflicts that have the potential to spiral out of control at any moment. Many of these go back decades in the past, and we just don't know what's going to happen. These are rumors of war right now. So you might ask, well, how is this different from any time in human history? Because after all, we've always had rumors of war. We've always had war. So let's look and see. Let's go back to Matthew 24, and let's see what Jesus said after verse 6. We'll read 7 and 8 together. So this says, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, right? And we've been hearing rumors of famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come, right? So there's the key sentence. What are birth pains, right? So birth pains increase in frequency and intensity as the birth arrives, right? As the closer you get to the birth of the baby, the birth pains are going to increase in frequency and intensity. So in this context, the second coming of Jesus Christ is the birth that we're awaiting. So the birth pains are these general signs which will increase in frequency and intensity as the time of the second coming nears. So do we see that? Do we see these increases in wars and famines and frequency and intensity? Yes, we do. So think about what war meant in the time of Jesus. So wars were regional in nature. They were a lot different than they are today. And we think about World War I and the immense toll of that. It was on a global scale. More people died in that conflict than any other conflict by far up to that point. And then that's followed by World War II, which was even bigger, killed even more people than World War I did. So it stands to reason World War III will be even bigger, right? So we're seeing the intensity of these conflicts of war increasing as we get closer and closer to the return of Jesus. So would we expect any of these conflicts to erupt into beyond a regional basis and into World War III? Now, I'm not so sure that they will right now, and I know for sure that we aren't going to see a World War III where nuclear weapons fly all over the world and destroy humanity. The Bible makes it very clear that humanity is around and is surviving and thriving when Jesus comes back. So there will not be destruction of humanity from nuclear war. Now that doesn't mean that a nuclear war on a more limited or regional basis won't take place before he comes. So, but right now we live in a world governed by mutual assured destruction. So the idea that a war between two major nuclear powers would destroy both sides and therefore neither one engages in that hot war with the other. As we went over in a video last week, the era of mutual assured destruction is going to come to an end sometime. I don't know if that's one of these conflicts that will lead to that, but sometime in the near future, advanced technology is going to lead to the circumvention of that doctrine of mutual assured destruction. And when that happens, World War III will erupt, and one nation or coalition of nations will be the victor in that war, and they will dominate the globe, establish a global empire. You can read in Revelation 6 and on about that destructive global war, and that empire will be ruled by the Antichrist. So all of these things, these rumors of war, this is showing us that we are in the time prior to Jesus' return, prior to the tribulation. And since I believe the Bible teaches that the rapture occurs before the tribulation, that means the rapture is even closer than that. So I think these wars and rumors of wars are really pointing us to look up because our redemption draws near. What do you think? Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Make sure to like and share this video. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow on whether or not has World War III already started? And most of the world is unaware of it. Could be. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, God willing. We'll talk then. Until then, bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.